On July the 2nd, 1934, John Dillinger walked into the tiny town of Barrington, Illinois. With valued $500 in hand and a list of addresses written by his boss, he was here to rob a bank. He wore no disguise, walked right up to the cashier and handed him a note. "I want all the money in this bank. Hurry." The cashier got the hint. In minutes, Dillinger had the loot and vanished. He did it again 3 days later in East Chicago, then again in West Frankfurt. He robbed 5 banks in 19 days and police were clueless. The FBI had been formed just 8 years prior and lacked experience. Forensics? Not yet established. So when Dillinger pulled off another heist in Wisconsin, they went old school, sending out informants to tail him, bug his hideouts, and capture his every move. Their man was J. Edgar Hoover. In those 19 days, they gathered enough evidence to convict Dillinger. But that didn't stop him. The manhunt continued. When they finally cornered him in Tucson, Arizona, Hoover ordered he be transported back to Wisconsin for trial. The notorious gangster was placed in the back of a car with 2 agents. As they drove through Chicago, he suddenly lunged for one of the agents' guns. It was a wild shootout. Dillinger took the bullet and collapsed into a pool of blood. The legend of public enemy number 1 had ended. Well, except for the part where in 1973, rumors swirled around Texas. People swore they saw Dillinger tending bar in a small town, totally alive and kicking. Soon, U.S. Marshals raided a local house. They found a stash of his old weapons, his fingerprints, even an alias. But Dillinger himself was nowhere to be found. Could the most hunted man in America have really evaded justice for 4 decades? Was he still at large? What if he somehow became invisible? In the summer of 1986, Richard Rick Mallory adjusted his glasses and surveyed his surroundings from atop a shower stall. This was his favorite spot. From here, he could watch everyone and everything, which is how he knew the moment a fight broke out. 3 guys, including Spider Kelly, a notorious thief, were going at it. Rick quickly wrote down what he saw and sent it to the Chief of Internal Affairs, hoping to gain some favors. The thing was, Rick wasn't exactly in a position to bargain. He was a prisoner in the brutal Iron Ridge Penitentiary, doing 75 years for armed robbery and assault. Actually, the assault charge was a bit of an accident. He'd meant to scare the owner of the gas station, not kill him. But because of his rap sheet, the judge gave him an extra 25 years. And if anyone could handle that kind of punishment, it was Rick. Tall, muscular, and smart, he was the kind of guy who planned his moves carefully. Like once in 1978, he robbed a bank in Florida, tied up the employees and locked them in the vault. And then, and only then, did he crack open the door and start taking the cash out. He was careful to leave no fingerprints. He always studied the building layout beforehand, planning multiple entry and exit points. And whenever someone looked at him funny, he flashed his silver dollar smile and said, "Don't worry, buddy, we're gonna be best friends." Later, a cop found out about his plan to rob 15 banks in 15 days. He would have gotten away with it too if he hadn't dropped his wallet while climbing the fence after the last bank. And when they found his wallet, they found the blueprint to his perfect crimes. Now, Rick was different from other inmates, more charming, more intellectual. When he spoke, the guards leaned in to listen, and when he walked, the other inmates made way for him. Some loved him, some feared him, but all of them respected him. Even the guards couldn't help but feel a grudging admiration for the master criminal. He was their celebrity. But Rick never played up to his audience. He kept to himself, reading books, solving puzzles, staying sharp. For Rick, being in prison wasn't about losing freedom. It was about being stuck with boring people. He was serving his time. Then came the warden's orders. Every prisoner was to be interviewed by the psychologist Dr. Emily Carter. Her job was to determine their suitability for release. If she approved, the warden would reduce their sentences. But no one wanted to talk to her. Until Rick raised his hand. He told the other inmates he had nothing to lose. Why not try to get out early? Maybe he'd walk right back into the arms of the FBI. Or maybe, just maybe, he could convince the shrink that he'd changed, that he was worth giving a second chance to. Meanwhile, the Iron Ridge Penitentiary had a secret history. Built in 1951, it replaced a Civil War fort used to house German prisoners of war. Its architecture was straight out of a horror movie. High walls, long solitary corridors, showers without doors, rows of cells with numbers instead of names. The prison was designed to break your spirit, to make you feel small and powerless. The guards were relentless, enforcing a strict hierarchy. They watched the inmates through cameras hidden in the ceiling. Any sign of trouble, and they descended like vultures. Life at Iron Ridge was brutal, which made Rick's plan even more audacious. Over a year, he carefully cultivated an image for Dr. Carter. He confessed his past mistakes, shared his dreams for the future, and offered a simple apology for his crimes, all the while feeding information to Spider Kelly about her theories on inmates and the psychology of crime. Spider Kelly, eager to earn Rick's trust, dutifully relayed this info to the prison tailor, Maggie Garrett, who also attended Dr. Carter's sessions. Unbeknownst to them both, Maggie was having an affair with the head guard, a married man with a dark secret. She was sharing Dr. Carter's secrets with him, including the fact that she was the one who recommended Rick for early release. You see, Maggie knew Rick had a plan to escape as soon as he was set free. And she liked dangerous men. Months went by and the warden decided to take a gamble on Rick. He reduced his sentence, much to the dismay of the head guard, whose own plans would be ruined by this change. But there was nothing he could do. Rick was set to become a free man. Now all he needed was a good alibi for the day of his release. Enter Peter Zabriskie, aka Spider Kelly. With a quick switch in the files, he became the new prisoner number 1329, sentenced to 20 years. Meanwhile, the head guard visited Maggie and reminded her how much she had to lose if anyone found out about their relationship. She better keep her mouth shut and stick to her job. So when the new psychologist joined Iron Ridge, she found a perfect storm of fear, secrets and resentments, all simmering under the surface. It was the night of Rick's release. As the gates opened, he turned to look at the towering prison walls, one last glance at his home for the past decade. It was a strange feeling, like stepping off a sinking ship. Freedom. He took a deep breath, then walked into the night. His getaway car was waiting, and with a wave he disappeared into the darkness. His plan was set in motion. Rick traveled to Buffalo, then boarded a bus to Canada. The border was his final hurdle. He had a fake ID, a plan, and a wad of cash, but crossing the border would be risky. He needed to stay below the radar, so he did something unexpected. He asked to be searched. When the guards found nothing, they let him go with a warning to stay out of trouble. Rick flashed his silver dollar smile and promised he would. He walked into Canada and disappeared. The country seemed huge, exciting, full of possibilities. As the months passed, Rick settled into his new life. He worked as a janitor in a small school, far from prying eyes and memories of his past. He saved enough money to rent a house and started painting. He even met a woman named Mary. She didn't know his real name or that he had a wife back in Ohio. They dated, then got married. Soon he was leading a double life. By day, a mild-mannered janitor. By night, he was back in his element, robbing small businesses and cashing checks. He was careful. He picked places far from population centers and avoided cameras. And then one day, a routine traffic stop turned into a nightmare. The cops found stolen goods in his car. Suddenly, Rick was looking at a lifetime behind bars. But that never happened. 1 week before the trial, the charges were mysteriously dropped. The prosecutor cited lack of evidence, but that wasn't true. There was plenty of evidence. Someone had fixed the case. But who? And why? Decades passed. Rick grew older, his hair graying, his steps slower, but his mind remained sharp. He continued his double life until 2016, when he died of a heart attack. He was 72. The next year, his death certificate was signed by none other than Mary Garrett, his wife. But there was something strange about the signature. It was shaky. It was unlike Mary's usual bold scroll. And when the FBI tracked down the doctor who signed Rick's death certificate, they got a surprising answer. The doctor swore she hadn't signed anything. Confused and scared, she showed them the document. Sure enough, it was a forgery. Whoever killed Rick wanted the world to think he died in his sleep. But why? What if Rick didn't stop robbing banks? What if he was still out there? That's when retired FBI agent Claire Dana heard about the case. Obsessed with unsolved mysteries, she took it upon herself to find the truth. She started digging into Rick's past, interviewing his former colleagues and friends. But everyone seemed to have their own secrets. Some refused to talk. Some remembered too little. And some, like Maggie's son Tommy, seemed genuinely afraid. He told Claire his mother had died mysteriously a few years back. Had she uncovered something she shouldn't have? Or had someone silenced her to protect Rick? And then there was Rick's daughter Lisa. She visited her father's grave, leaving flowers and notes. It was clear she missed him. But when Claire approached her, she acted coldly. As if her father was a stranger, Claire noticed a peculiar detail. Lisa wasn't on the guest list for the funeral. She wasn't mentioned in any documents, and she certainly wasn't in any of Rick's photos. Who was she and what was her connection to the mysterious man? Determined to find answers, Claire dug deeper into Rick's past. She pored over his old prison files, trying to piece together the puzzle of his life. And that's when she stumbled upon something that no one had noticed before, a series of coded messages hidden in Rick's prison artwork. With each stroke of his paintbrush, he had left behind a clue. After months of deciphering the codes, Claire discovered the truth. Rick had spent his entire adult life as a spy, working for a top-secret government agency. He had been framed for the robberies and murders set up by his own agency to take the fall for a botched mission. His cellmate Spider Kelly had been his handler, feeding him information and watching over him. And when Rick was released, it was all part of the plan. Maggie Garrett, the prison tailor, had been assigned to keep tabs on Rick, ensuring he stayed on track. The other inmates were players in this elaborate game, pawns in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. With this revelation, Claire now understood why Rick had been so meticulous, why he had taken such pains to cover his tracks. He wasn't just a common criminal. He was a ghost, a phantom who had slipped through the fingers of the very agency that had created him. His legacy was one of shadows and secrets, a testament to a life lived on the edge of darkness.